welcome to the Weed Out, where we weed out the bullshit and talk about the nonsense happening in our backyard. I'm Spencer Fox Peterson, along with my co-host as always.
Hi everyone, I'm Joanna May Booty.
And this week we are recording. It is middle of December, December 19th. The genocide in Gaza is still happening. It's still on our mind. We are going to bring it up on every platform. It's not just in Gaza, it's also the global south in general, Congo, Sudan. The list is long. We are anti-imperialists. We are anti-capitalists here at the Weed Out. And we want to remind people that regardless of any factor, anti-imperialism and anti-capitalism come first. That's our values. So, we do not stand for this genocide. We do not stand for this imperialism. And, it's supposed to be a wonderful time of year where families get together, but families are being destroyed by our tax dollars, by our bombs. And solidarity and shout out to all the people doing direct action, whether it's protesting, blocking highways, blocking shipments of arms, resisting in any way they can. Shout out to all you. You're seen. We love you. And, every moment is a chance to resist. And I know the white neoliberals during the Trump years kind of broke that word resist. But the resistance must go on, and it must be a lifestyle choice. So here at the Weed Out, just to be clear, anybody listening, we are not Zionists, we are not imperialists. We're here for people. We care about people. That's why we talk what's going on in our backyard, because we can't necessarily stop the bombs happening in Gaza at this moment. God, I wish I could flip a switch and change it all, but I can't. But what I can do is bring light to things that are happening in our backyard. And it's all parallel. All imperialism is the same down to the local level to the geopolitical level. So the existence of policing is a way to colonize and occupy workers to keep us in line. So we keep going and fund them and fuel the machine and be good little workers. They don't want thinkers. Rockefeller famously said, "I want a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers." And you should be pissed when you read that quote, because he thinks of us nothing less than a bunch of ants. And here at the Weed Out, we just because they're dead doesn't mean we don't talk shit about them. So fuck Rockefeller. I said Rockefeller earlier, right?
Yeah, you did.
Fuck all these people and these imperialist scum. There's no other name for it, and they need to be reminded that. So that's what this first 2 minutes was about. Even though we're not going to talk about Palestine and Gaza, fuck the imperialists. That's all I got. Joanna, how are you?
I'm doing well, in full agreement. Um, it's really sad that um our government isn't listening to what the majority of the people are now saying. So I think the atrocities of what is happening in Gaza are very heavy, but I think it is wonderful to see that the majority of Americans do want a ceasefire. They do not want this kind of bloodshed to be occurring. And war crimes are being committed. And I was someone with a focus in ethics. I don't know what this will mean for the future historians to look back on, because war crimes are committed all of the time, but this is so blatant and the information is um different than it's been potentially in the past when we get information about wars. So I hope everyone is taking care and doing what they can to support themselves and their community. Like Spencer said, thank you to everyone who we see out there doing direct action, be it through um, covering stories and writing about it, to walking 25 miles um, to show how fervently against the genocide in Palestine that you are. So, thank you to our listeners and to the community at large that understands the connection between something, like you said, Spencer, so far away, something that could seem so removed from us. But that's why we do focus on local politics here and local issues here, because we do have a police presence here in Western Massachusetts and throughout the entire United States. And as abolitionists, in addition to all of the things you've discussed and mentioned, abolishing these systems so that there can eventually be care and help and community that doesn't involve state sanctioned violence and murder would be the ideal world that I imagine. So, as we finish off a year, I just want everyone to know that my focus will remain the same in the new year. And I hope yours will too.
And to share my New Year's resolution, my New Year's resolution that I've been keeping up on, it's not even the new year yet, but picking a fight with a white man in proximity or in power. So there's a
It's a
few
good one. It's a
there's a
good
few on my list, and you know what? The best part is when they acknowledge that I'm there bothering them. So we got
that is really good. I'm not gonna lie.
we're
On
not going to
Twitter, that
focus too much attention
really
because
good.
this isn't about
It's not.
bullying per se.
Not. It's
And these
not.
people should be bullied, but I'm not going to lead the bullying. I will just do my part. Um, and I love when they respond and let us know that they see us because it's like, great, you just legitimized me. Thank you.
It's a called engagement, everyone.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Good. And they all say any attention is good attention, right? So when it comes to this, getting the word abolition on their eyeballs, getting them shaking in their boots, whether they know they're shaking or not, they are. A couple of the people we interact with on a regular, and these aren't the people I'm talking about are not random.
They're not
No,
abolitionists
no,
or
but they're
random
also
people.
like they're campaign managers. They're
Yes, we're not people picking on people
not
randomly.
picking on
That's true.
people that haven't
They're people in
signed up
power.
signed up for public scrutiny. That's a
No. Sure. Sure. And I think
we punch up here. And if you
sure.
decided to be a public figure, whether it's through media or politic or public service, well, fair game,
Joke's on you.
fair game. You
And
also have
also,
more
I
power than me,
well,
So
that's true. That's true.
even the director of the water department in Holyoke has more power than me. He just does. He directly affects he or they, she, they, whatever. They have so much more power, and we don't think about stuff like that. But these people are in positions of power, so they're open to scrutiny. So anytime I try to focus on white men because as a white man, I feel like it's my duty to get my people. I don't go out of my way to find white men; they just are everywhere.
Yeah, they're everywhere. You guys are all over the place, all up in
Democrat,
everything,
Republican, Independent,
up in
communist.
everything.
There's white men everywhere fucking shit up, and
Oh,
um,
and you guys don't really quiet down, you
and they
know?
don't know how to deal with when another white man punches them back. They don't understand. They don't know what to do. They get flabbergasted. And you goat them into doing stupid shit, saying stupid shit, because they're not used to being pushed back on. So that's my New
That's
Year's
true.
resolution, and I'm proud to say I'm already doing it, and it's working for me. And it's
I'm happy for you.
a great outlet.
Congratulations.
Great outlet.
That's great. I'm so glad. I don't have resolutions. So I want everyone to know mine is just, I don't have a resolution, but I was just saying I'll stay on the course, per usual. But if people do resolutions, have at it. I know this time of year is difficult for people. So if that's something that is something you do, that's fantastic. If that stresses you out, we don't care. Like we want you to just get through to the new year. And I just want everyone to know we'll be here doing the same, um, not the same, but we'll have the same focus and we'll be doing similar work in the next year because I think there are so many things that even though we have or now we're at are we at 55 is this 56 episode?
56.
Yeah, so this is our 56th episode and I just think it's very apparent to me and I think our audience would agree that there are stories every day that we could cover. There are people out there, there are investigative journalists doing work. There are our neighbors and community members doing great things. So we have some really good content planned for the new year. And yeah, that's exciting for me.
Yeah, and speaking of other abolitionists or just good community building content, podcasts and otherwise, Shout out to our friends at Mass Transparency, Jeff Raymond and Andrew Quamier. Shout out to the shoestring people. They've actually done 2 police accountability kind of episodes. The second one
Yeah.
got dropped today, where Shelby and Dusty of the shoestring spoke to Will of also who's written for the shoestring over the years about his history with Chief Jody Casper. You've heard me rant about the Northampton police chief. If you want to hear a different take, but still very critical and very well resourced, their episode on Chief Jody Casper is definitely something to check out. I recommend both those podcasts. And there's other journalists and other activists that we love. We don't have enough time to shout them out today, but those 2 are the ones that are pushing police reform and police accountability and transparency. Like Shelby has been diligently trying to get weapons inventory from various police departments in the Pioneer or the Connecticut River Valley, formerly the Pioneer River Valley. Joanna and I have tried getting weapons records, but truthfully, we gave up because it's frustrating. They basically accuse the person asking of like, oh, you might be getting this information for possible terrorism. It's like, what the fuck are we talking about here? So shout out to Shelby for staying on that and highlighting.
Yes, Shelby's my fam. So shout out to my fam. They did give us some like Shelby definitely gave you and I some like background information on how to request
Oh, absolutely.
records, and Andrew did as well. So Shelby and I go way back. Shelby is my partner, Caleb's cousin. And even if they weren't, I would still say the Shoestring Overall as a collective does great work, and like Jeff and Andrew do fantastic work too. It's usually from out east, but they're always just both of them have great platforms, and together with Mass Transparency, I think it's fantastic. Their podcast is great too.
And keep in mind, like, this is not paid plugs. We don't do any of
No,
that. These are just people
no,
we really respect, and we think they're doing the quote unquote Lord's work, and
the Dark Lord's work.
whatever, like they're
You know what I'm saying?
yeah. I just am really, I'm in awe of the community, and not one person can do this, and
Mm.
without other people digging into the research, I can't do my job, and I can only do so much. I guess we can only do so much. There's only so many hours in a day, and there's only so many days in the week. So um that said, like, that's the goal of the Weed Out. We want to grow, we want to we want to build, because we're abolitionists. We understand you cannot reform this structure from the within, whether it's journalism, mainstream journalism, whether it's corporate media, whether it's corporations in general, policing, public sector side stuff. Like, you cannot reform. We have to make them obsolete, and so that people don't need them anymore. So that's kind of our
And
goal
for them,
here.
and they're doing that on their own. That's why we're here to highlight.
Right, exactly. And you know, the
Sadly.
resistance of the Weed Out is us putting our money where our mouth is. Us putting, we criticize the media, we criticize the opinion makers, the journalists. We maybe beat the story to the ground longer than mainstream media does. Mainstream media will talk about like fictitious fucking fentanyl over and over again ad nauseum, but they won't mention the actual like malfeasance of a cop over and over again. They say it once if they have to say it. Derek Chauvin is an anomaly. Like, that kind of stuff doesn't stay in the zeitgeist very long with policing. So that's why the Weed Out exists. The fucking corporate media doesn't hold these powerful people to account, and we criticize them. So we may as well stand 10 toes down on it and do it ourselves. And that also means recognizing that we alone aren't going to fix it. So please support these other entities. We do this for now, Joanna and I are doing this as, our post-work curriculars. Like, this isn't a vanity project. We don't have any money. We're fucking workers, man. But we do have voices. We do have lots of thoughts. We have the ability to mass communicate. We know we've built social media platforms before for other people and for ourselves. Not to just to understand, so the listeners know where we're coming from. So this is the end of the year kind of wrap up in a way. So just kind of remind everybody where we're coming from, where we're going, and trying to break that whole mindset of like, are you making money? How are you paying the bills? Well, yeah, bills need to be paid. Websites need to be paid for. But we would love your money for that. But at the same time, we're going to keep doing this either way, no matter what. Like, this is our duty. Like, our duty is to build something different that makes the existing structure that's holding us down obsolete. So that's the goal. And that's the goal of these other organizations and groups of writers and journalists and podcasters now. So shout out to Shelby for being a podcaster. Shout out to Dusty and Shelby. I think that this has been their inaugural couple podcasts. So hopefully they stick with it and they like it. If not, totally understandable. Writing is different than podcasting. And I definitely feel a lot more comfortable podcasting than I do writing, just personally. Joanna's probably a mix of both. Everybody's different,
I
right?
am a mix
How do you
of
feel
both.
about what do you feel about podcasting versus writing?
I'm a mix of both, like you said. So as a person who's performed since I was 3 years old and like been in front of a microphone on a stage, I and still have stage fright to this day if I teach. I think it's hard. It was that harder at first, and now it becomes more fluid because we're very consistent. Platform and we have a conversationalist style between us and with our guests. So I think for me that works in terms of writing. As you know, I've been an adjunct faculty member for technical writing, so for dissertations, theses. So like journalistic writing is actually a little harder for me, and I usually have to talk to you or my partner Caleb um, to help me with writing like that. But I still feel confident as a writer. So in the future, to all of our listeners who know us and love us, I do hope to do more investigative writing for the platform too. But like Spencer said, this is a side project beyond our full time jobs and life. So we do what we can. And thank you so much for listening and supporting me, especially to my friends and loved ones. And those I haven't met yet too. Hopefully we can even do like get together sometime. But I love our core audience that we have at this point. And please, anyone, let us know if there's something we should cover coming out in the new year. Hit us up at theweedout@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
And if you feel more comfortable to hitting us up on social media, we check the DMs pretty regularly, so that's cool too.
Yeah, we do.
Email is preferred just for organizational purposes.
Yeah, but whatever works. You
Whatever
never
works
know
for
who
you,
you'll
we'll make it
get.
happen. We are we follow through with what we say we're going to do, or we just say we can't. We're very honest people, so I feel like the proof's in the pudding on that. And just to kind of hone or make a finer point of what you were saying about writing, so like I have a really hard time starting, whether it's writing a song, but I'm really
Get
good.
started.
Yeah, so like
Yeah, that's hard. Me
anybody at
too.
home, this is a reminder that you don't have to be good at every aspect, right? So
Oh,
singer songwriter, you can write a great idea, but that doesn't necessarily mean you know how to execute it. You know, like you don't have to know how to play a saxophone. You can have the idea and teach somebody what you want, and then the expert can do it. So like I'm better, I think, once somebody's written something and they have a shell of something, I'm really good at looking at it and reading it and offering critiques because I can put myself in the position of the audience, and I'm definitely more of a from the producer side personally. Like when I worked in music, I was way more comfortable on the other side of the glass at the the control board and talking to the singer about like their performance, and not in the sense that I'm like a control freak. There's definitely like an element of control, knowing what you want, but it was more like you have this thing that's raw and untethered, and you just need somebody to help you like stand outside yourself. I can do that. I can do that all day. But yeah, starting from scratch
so
is
I was the singer. That's
so working in group.
where
Like
I
you
came.
gotta feel free to work in groups. Say you want to write or you want to You know, you want to have a social media page that, even if it's something as small as something like a meme page, you know, team up with somebody.
Well, yeah, because I was just gonna say, like, for me, because of my background in writing, like the outline and the shell is kind of like where I that's like where I shine. I could make you an outline at any time. Getting
Right.
started is hard. So everybody, getting started is the hardest part. You just try to get started. But so yeah, so like someone like Spencer and we work well together. Similarly with my partner Caleb, and I think I have always loved collaborating, on projects and working with either my friends or my partners in life on different activities. And I know that doesn't always work out well for everyone. So it doesn't have to be your partner, but it can be friends, it can be people that you've just met, your neighbors in your community. There are so many good groups. There's AKIND in East Hampton that you could reach out to. There's NAN, there's Demilitarize, there's Decarcerate, there's a couple of places up near. I'll share a bunch of resources if people are looking for community, because that is another thing as we wind the year down that I feel during this heavy period of grief that we all experience when we see things like this happening in the world, the genocide occurring all over the world, in Africa and in Gaza.
And
And
here
I
in
think,
America,
and
let's
here
not
in
forget the
America,
genocide of the Native Americans is ongoing. It's an
it is, it
ongoing.
is.
We're destroying our treaties. We never honor our treaties. That's an act of genocide. What we do to
I
their water, how we trap them, how we cut them off, how we move them around. This government is genocidal here at home. It's not over. And what they did to black people, I don't know if it qualifies as a genocide, but it's inhumane shit. What we're currently doing to black men in this country, specifically with the prison industrial system. And that's why we're here at the Weed Out. And I know not everybody's like gonna want to dive into that content. So even if you listen just to be informed, or you just want to hear somebody else's, there's some other aspect in this world that you can participate in. It doesn't have to be police abolition or prison abolition. You know,
So
we
yes, please. That was my point. Like, don't fall into despair.
right.
Please fall into community.
Advocate for children to have
And
resources at
yes,
school.
anything that the elderly right
You don't
now,
even have to
and
be like, I care
whatever
specifically
you'd
about
like.
LGBTQ kids. You could just be like, all kids should have all the resources they need in their school. Period. End of story. And then that can be your argument. Well, if you're looking for money, the police department over there, it seems to be burning a lot of it, because that's really the reality. We give most of our money to militarized occupational forces, and that we say that word very purposely. So speaking of occupational forces, the meat of this episode is going to be about fascist rituals. All right. So if you're listening to Massachusetts in the last 2 weeks, you have to have heard about
Have to.
Waltham police officer Paul Tracy was on detail and hit by a driver, presumably fleeing another crime. So there's that fun element. But so an officer died simply on the side of the road, but also a service worker, a national grid worker,
So
was
had
also.
he pulled someone over, or he was like
Oh, he was like
guarding,
he was doing the
like a traffic
he
detail
was the
type
human
thing?
traffic cone situation, and
Right.
so this person, I don't even care. Like, it's probably not great with this person why they were driving erratically. I think I read
Yeah.
something.
I mean, for me, it
Suspicion
scares
is
me just
erratic.
because please, everyone drive
All the
normally.
information is coming from the police, by the way. So
Right, of
let's
course. But
take
they
this
did
all with a
kill a
grain of salt.
civilian. A civilian was killed too.
So this is my point with the occupation stuff. So a tragedy that happened. All the articles, if you were on Mass Live, WWLP or WCVB Boston or Boston Herald, Boston Globe, it was all about the officer, 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 officer. And then 7th paragraph in it would say something about the national grid worker, a black man, worker. I'm sorry, he's more valuable to the precious system because he's literally fixing the power grid, which nothing can happen without. The economy, the police are powerless without electricity. These fucking high school fucking failures can't do shit without their little toys, which are powered.
No, it's super sad too. Like, he's 36 years old. He's out there.
Me, you're
I
more
mean,
likely
yeah,
to die as a 36-year-old service worker driving a truck or working on the side of the road. You are far more likely. Cop is the 20th most dangerous profession per capita.
Yeah. So like this guy's job's definitely more like if he's working the national grid, he was already in a more dangerous position.
And the reason we're bringing this up, it's also just disgusting propaganda, focusing on the police, focusing on the police. Listen, this dude's got bennies. He's got life insurance. He's fine. Their union is strong. His family's going to be made whole. They may have to jump through some hoops. I'm not saying it's going to be easy for them, right?
Well, it's just the coverage, like how many stories are just focusing
But
on
the
him.
the,
Is
the
what we're pointing
GoFundMe's
out.
that pop up
Yes, and how they're
and
trying to
all
get
this shit, and
money
it's
for the
like,
family.
meanwhile, no mention of this worker who's probably making $70,000 a year as a highly trained guy that goes out in all weather to fix your power lines. More often, people like him die on the job than the cop. It just happens to be at the same time, and there's no focus on the worker. So right there, mass media, community, corporate media, no gives a fuck about us plebeians, us fucking peasants. None. Your seventh paragraph mention, right? And of course, when you go online, a lot of humans, individuals, bring this up. I'm not alone. Like, what the fuck? Why aren't they talking about the worker? And not even to say like the cop shouldn't be. I mean, I wouldn't mention it, but that's me. I understand he's a human being too, and he died needlessly. It didn't need to happen. You know, makes me wonder, why don't we invest more in public transportation? Why do we have all these pods? Like, I want to solve the problem at the issue. You know, taking away this incredible power that we give to almost every human adult in this country, regardless of ability, to drive a hunk of metal at anywhere from 25 to 150 miles per hour. It's super fucking stupid. It's a dumb system. And then you wonder why these tragedies happen. And they're totally fucking avoidable. But so this officer dies, whole hoopla. You couldn't drive down the pike still to this day. So I noticed the signs on Thursday on the Mass Pike. So I drive a lot for work. And today I was on the highway and the signs are still up, like remembering Officer Paul Tracy.
Does it say
On those,
sergeant? Is it's because that's I saw
no,
it
that's a
from this.
different, something else happened.
So who's that one? Because I was
Probably
driving on
died of
91.
COVID. I don't even know. Like half these dudes, like that's the thing.
Gosh.
The cops they use their COVID deaths to
Well, I know, but
as
I
line
just
of
thought
duty.
the sergeant,
So
the
they
farewell
puff
sergeant
even.
one was the one you were talking
So
about.
whenever some bootlicker mentions how many cops died last year, keep in mind heart attacks on the line of duty, COVID line of duty, that all counts towards line of
Seriously.
duty. So like their numbers are buffed. And they're still pitifully low compared to the civilians they killed extrajudicially without going to court.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the problem here. It's not that cops fear for their lives. It's an agent of the state acting as the state is killing people without due process. That's the cold, disgusting reality. And then vice versa, when a cop gets killed, either through accident or tragedy, like this side of the road shit, who wasn't preemptive, right? Or even preemptive murder, any of that, they'll throw the book at you so fucking hard because they care more about protecting the power of the state than they do the power of the people. Of course, the institution's going to do that, right? Like, makes total sense. But the point I struggle with is why is you see the highway get shut down in LA last week for the ceasefire, the Jews, American Jews for ceasefire, whatever group that was. Like the one group that should have a leg to stand on here. People are villainizing them. People are saying, politicians saying like they should be, this is terrorism, all this shit, right? Discussing Democrats too. It's not just Republican. And meanwhile, this guy dies, presumably collecting an OT check on the detail, which they have that market monopolied and regular workers can't get that. Then there's these fascist parades where all these cops clock in for overtime and they quote unquote, this is an actual headline, show massive sea of blue in his honor. Like they're playing with us in our face. They're showing us the force they have. They can shut down a city. They can shut down ambulance lanes for a parade because of a tragedy. And the cynical thing is they don't give a fuck about Officer Tracy. They don't give a fuck about this man or his family. This is a grift. This is a show of force. This is akin to like Nazi jackboot parades. They get to show all their toys and all this shit. And like, if anybody fucks with us, we'll bring this down on you. Like, this is just bad luck. I know the person who drove is at fault, right? I know there's
Well, yeah.
technically manslaughter or murder, right? I'm not saying there isn't somebody that is to blame, but this wasn't premeditated. And this is how they roll out on just bad luck,
Well, yes. So that's the thing.
telling on
And
themselves.
that's yes. And I will say, not to say that, like, the media isn't covering only the police officer incredibly hard. You're not at all wrong. But if you do type in Waltham, Mass, the Herald, so like more local. Oh no, the Herald's covering him. Sorry. Um, and BC Boston, so it's like News Channel 10, I think, out there. Laura's worked with them, and WCBB has covered the worker. So Roderick Jackson is his name, and he went by Keto, and he had hundreds at his funeral mourning him. He was laid to rest in Cambridge. So this past Saturday. So just so people know, um, and his family does plan on suing, because I think in this case, like, if the charges aren't pressed, um, because he died in a motor vehicle accident, there's only so much that you can get from like insurance policies. So they may be deciding to sue like another way. So there is coverage out there. It's just like you have to search to find it, which is also shady.
Right. And, just the whole idea of the Mass Department of Transportation putting out signals on these emergency lights. These electronic signs on the highway are to convey important information.
Yeah, and the ones around here have just been saying something about some sergeant lately
Rest in
in
peace.
on 91. Yeah, so that's even a different one than you're talking about on 90.
So everybody at home,
And I think it's bullshit.
we're not being hyperbolic when we say the United
No.
States is a fascist police state, and it always has been. Ask indigenous people, ask black people. The thing is, if you argue it's getting worse now, it's getting worse. It's because you were on the in group. I'm on the in group. Joanna's on the in group. We're being honest with our privilege here. That's why it's imperative we refuse to be governed by this. Become ungovernable on this issue, because honestly, it's already been here. Nazi Germany wishes it could be us.
And I think that your point about the coverage of this and how there are these parades for something that's a horrible accident, and it's upsetting probably for this man's family, but I do not need them to use tax dollars that for an already bloated police force to then shut down the streets and
On a
my
weekday
town. Sometimes,
during
yeah,
regular
on a weekday or whenever they want, sometimes during rush hour.
regular business hour.
Right. And this is, I'm talking, I've seen this in multiple towns, even recently in Western Mass, where things are shut down during a rush hour period, and it's interrupting commerce. It's interrupting, people getting to take care of the people they need to, could stop doctors, who knows. Um, but it's fine because a police officer has perished, or whoever has died, and like of a state person who supposedly protects us and keeps us safe, we should honor them. But when I see a group of protesters out in those same streets who are trying to stop mass killings, and they're trying to show, hey, maybe there's a different way. The discourse is completely different, and in fact, people want to harm them. So I think we should think about that a little bit, because those protesters typically, and I know all of our audience members are supporting and sometimes are some of those protesters, but please know we do see the differences in the way that people, I don't know, approach the protesters versus the state parades. And I'm personally more angry that they would spend tax dollars parading police through the streets. And I would much prefer protesters having the right to their freedom of speech. And when you're standing up for something like others people's lives, I understand why you maybe stop traffic to get people's attention. I don't think that should be considered any more disruptive than
Bring
what
the
the
same
police
energy.
do.
You're gonna
What
be
the
mad.
police do.
They're gonna be mad about ambulances and fire trucks being blocked because there's a
Be
genocide.
mad about the police
Be mad
parades.
about the police
Yeah.
parades. Be actually mad.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's hundreds of thousands of people being murdered every day in the global south,
Mm-hmm.
and slowly murdered or directly murdered here in the United States, whether it's through the prison system, through debt, through the shitty healthcare system. It's all torture. It's all bad, and it's all inhumane. So bring the same energy and call to task your loved ones that bring the energy for this, but not that. And
Yes.
the thing that why I get so angry about cops is how disgusting I find the logic. So this is straight out of, this is why I call them an occupying army as well, because this is a hearts and minds campaign. They are constantly in a hearts and minds campaign, which occupational forces do. This is like when you see the US forces giving candy to Iraqi kids and playing soccer with them, taking a couple hours off killing their fathers, you know? And then one of their brothers dies, and they use his dead body as PR to get OT at the very least. They're all clocked in and getting overtime and scamming that system. They're not there out of the goodness of their heart. They're getting paid, right? Meanwhile, every cop is in goddamn down, and I don't believe cops actually prevent crime, but like if they prevent a crime, why are they telling everybody they're not going to be working for the next 3 hours? But regardless, to use your comrade, your dead brother, to get OT or sympathy for when the next controversy happens, you can wheel out your dead brother's picture. Or the next time a contract comes up to oh, you can't have regular flaggers because this is a dangerous gob looking. It's like, yeah, his bulletproof vest and fucking tank didn't save him, you idiot. Maybe we got to rethink about how we do construction, or maybe rethink transportation. What does this have to do with anything, you fucking fascist fuck? So we live in an occupied land. And again, if you're white, you don't feel it. And it maybe feel like it's encroaching on us because it is. That's why it's important, Joanne and I find it important to put our name on the record now. So if it does get worse, I'm not afraid to fucking stand 10 toes down on this. And I'm not going to say like, oh, I just joined this fad, or even run away from it and try to pretend like, oh, yeah, that was my youth. No, this is wrong.
Well, and also I think it's good to remember that to deconstruct white supremacy within ourselves, it's okay for you to be uncomfortable. I have to work on this. I think everyone who is white has to. We're, like Spencer said, we're not used to being targeted or being made to feel uncomfortable. Sit with that and do what you need to do, take action, but it's okay if we're uncomfortable sometimes. It helps. It's not a good thing, but it's our brothers and sisters who are not white have been uncomfortable for a really long time,
And
to say the least.
the sneaky like Uno reverse of white supremacy is you have to
Yes,
be really careful with feeling sorry for yourself, because right to comfort
is a tenet of white
of white
supremacy.
supremacy. And
Yes.
it's like, yeah, like, well, I know everybody's been traumatized, but I was specifically traumatized this time by this protest. So it's like, well, black people have been traumatized systemically. So shut the fuck up, white person. Like,
Right. And that's why I'm sharing this,
be
because for
careful about
me,
feeling bad for yourself, because
yes,
that
and
also,
that's why I'm sharing this.
yeah.
Yes. Because I think it's hard. I don't think you shouldn't feel bad for yourself, because that you can have things happen that make you, you know, feel upset about it. But when you fall into the pattern of thinking you have the right to comfort, specifically, like you said, Spencer, it's like, it has been ingrained to most of us white people since we were little ones, especially if you were raised in a religious,
It is logical.
um,
Everybody's,
yeah, it makes total sense. Like, you should be able to be comfortable, but not everyone is able to be comfortable.
there's no comfort.
No,
It doesn't give
there's no
context to the greater world.
exactly,
Very
and like
myopic,
there's
individualistic.
And there's so many people that are not comfortable already. So it's just something that we definitely think about here at the Weed Out when we're,
The
thinking and
reason we talk about white supremacy and try to educate our fellow white people about it, um, because it's not black people and brown people's job.
no, that
The,
too.
the, the sad thing is the black community knows a lot more about us than we know about us. That is a reality. They clock us from a fucking mile away, and I don't like it makes total sense. They've had to learn us. We don't have like when you're on top, you don't have to look for your weaknesses. You don't have to like self-analyze. You don't have to break down every interaction that you had out of fear that maybe you'll get retaliated against by men in white hoods in the middle of the night that you won't be able to identify. So
Well, in present day, it means that you don't have to, you can't act angry because you're a woman. So, like, a lot of my black friends who are women tell me all the time, like, I'm not going to react that way, Joanna, and I appreciate you doing that for me. If I get up angry for them, because it happens. If I see something and I'm in the same room with someone I love, I don't care what color it is, but especially a black person, like Spencer said, I'm going to say something. And I've had multiple black friends tell me, black women, that they are so thankful that they didn't have to become angry at all because they're just consistently. That's a way to like detract from their messaging, just calling them a angry black woman. And I'm sorry, but they have every right to be angry. So if you never do that, never ever ever do that.
and also this is the time where I throw a little asterisk in here where I say white supremacy doesn't necessarily require white skin.
It doesn't.
They'll take useful pawns, people that are
They
willing.
will.
They will. Like there's plenty of exceptions to this rule,
There are.
you know,
Candace Owens.
but like I just want to ultimately say like dismantling, disrupting, and criticizing and bullying white supremacy to its face is the role of us white people. I feel
I
so bad
agree.
that
And explaining it to others.
the fact that I learned more about white supremacy from people like James Baldwin or Martin Luther King than I have ever learned from a white guy. They taught me more about my people. You know, just those big examples, right? They taught me more about my people than I ever learned about thinking critical about my people from people that look like me.
Well, another great point is that reading texts of people that are not white is also a great way to learn and grow.
Yeah,
And I know our audience does
like
that.
bullying it to its face is not their job, and it's our duty.
No,
It's our duty to them to like. It's not about
totally.
me. It's not about them. I'm not protect. They can protect themselves. They got themselves. I don't like white supremacy. I have a fucking problem with it. It makes me mad.
Preach, preach, preach.
This, and if anything, it's a selfish motivation because honestly, I was raised to be one of y'all. I find it fucking cowardly. I find it
Evil.
it's the easy route, and
It's
that's
fucking evil though. Like whoever like no.
and have a
And to
little
me it
pride.
doesn't, and to me I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense. I fully in my soul, my heart, everything about me just to hate each other is wrong. And I
To
know
think
that
that there's an
most
inherent, and this isn't just white,
that's not right. That's not right.
to think that there are people inherently above others.
That's gross.
Like there has to be kings. There has to be.
No, no.
No, that no, it absolutely fucking does not.
And we should all
Absolutely
love
not.
each and we should all love each other. And I don't mean that in the sense that like we're all holding hands singing fucking kumbaya. But I mean loving one another means we're all taken care of. We have what we need, and you just want that for someone else. I may never be able to speak to your face other than hello, goodbye, but I still would like you to be okay and have what you need. And that's love for each other and humanity. And that is what, when you look at children playing together, that is the hate is taught. And so for me, one of the reasons I will always talk about this with other white people, and as a white person, it's a focus for me, and I will point it out anytime I see it, is I will not be a part of teaching this to any younger person or anyone else. I will only be a part of unlearning this and love. That is all that we should be focusing on as white people is unlearning this craziness, this evil, horrible, disgusting indoctrination and making the world a better place. And I don't have children, but if I can help the world be better for everyone else's, that's great too.
Yeah. Well said. So yeah, that's these when I see these, to bring it back to the topic at hand, like this is white supremacy.
Well, it is. It's
They're
on
demanding
display.
right to comfort for their fallen fucking
Exactly.
their white supremacist goon. And I'm sorry, anybody listening, they're white supremacists, they're imperialists. That you can't be the
Yes, and they're
ethical cop. You can't, like,
you
you're
really
upholding a
can't.
structure. You're upholding a structure, and you're a key element of it. You have a gun and a right to kill.
And you're going to shut down traffic when one of your colleagues dies, but you're going to arrest me if I shut down traffic because of a genocide in the Congo or in Gaza.
Or a
And it
colleague of
just
yours being killed by the police.
well, exactly, but like
George
they're
Floyd
only
is a
here.
colleague of all of us. He was a working class person.
Well, that's true. That's
So
true.
Michael Brown is a colleague of ours. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
And like personally, I wouldn't I and I just want to put this on the record. Like I'm unique about this. Like I don't want to have a parade for all of our deaths. Like I don't think we should equally get like I just think no parade. Um but I know all people may have different thoughts on that, so I'm not the authority. Um when I'm dead, please do not parade me through the streets and stop traffic. I just I think it's important for people to understand that you can't call like it's calling us like call something what it is. Um, if protesters are disturbing the peace with what they're doing with traffic, this parade nonsense when someone dies is disturbing the peace too, but it's we're funding it with our tax dollars. So it brings it back to the weed outs like mission too is so that we all focus on our local politics, those budgets that matter. What are the people in Waltham paying for this? Are the state cops involved? How
oh
much
yeah,
does that
every
cost? You know what I mean? So
why
every town in that region might be spending fucking money on it. And that's something to think about.
we're also telling criminals they're not on the job.
Yeah. Well, yeah, who's out keeping us safe
Right.
when this parade happens? Do they have a backup force that we don't know about? Oh
Probably.
no. Like am I incredibly
Well, they
unsafe
have
during
all
all
their
of these?
rookies out. They have all their rookies out that were too young to know this guy.
Well,
Potentially,
yeah, and the audience, LOL, because the audience knows I don't believe that we're mostly unsafe here in
just,
America.
we're doing a thought exercise. This isn't actually how we think. Like,
We're doing a bit. We're doing
I don't think police should exist. So in my world, we don't even have to have this debate.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, the parades. It's just, and so that's just one of the things I know throughout the year we've shared so many different, I don't know, I guess accounts of people having interactions with the police that show that they don't protect us. They show that they're draining our communities of precious tax dollars that could go towards helping those that need it the most. And honestly, the amount of money would trickle back up to probably the most wealthy in a community. I am no freaking person you should be having run your books, but I do know a few things about counting numbers. And the monies that we give to police forces in our towns could just oh man, I just want us all to focus in the future on what can we do with those funds and how can we think of ways as we move forward. I know that there are some things that the slogan defund the police makes people uncomfortable, but we're not doing that. We're reallocating funds to make things better. So I know my slogan of reallocating funds to make things better isn't as poignant or upsetting. But and that's I want us to think about what we can do as the new year approaches because there will be a lot of local stuff we'll focus on in different towns. There's new mayors coming into office. Budget season will eventually hit. And we just want to think about that. And this is another example out in Waltham of dollars just being pretty much flushed down the toilet, in my opinion.
Yeah. And this is the stuff they show us. So imagine,
That's the thing.
you know,
It's upsetting.
yeah, I mean, I guess that's what kind of ticks me off about, um, people who say they're fiscally conservative, but
Me too.
that money's gone. It, it
What
goes
are
in the
you
top
talking
pocket.
about?
It doesn't trickle anywhere. It's just gone. Whereas you invest in other things, the money comes back to you.
Right. I don't think any politician in the entire country that I've like on a that I've personally witnessed it could call themselves um a fiscal conservative based on either being okay with the military or police budgets. They're absurd.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think it's like a something only libertarians may say.
holidays are
Because
coming
I
up
swear.
for everybody. The Pentagon's failed its sixth audit in a row. They've lost trillions with a T, trillions. I didn't even know trillions existed, but they do. Dollars, they don't know where they are. They're probably funding genocides we don't even know about with them. Or, they're in the hands of bad people who paid top dollar for it. So, yeah, I mean, imagine what our police budgets, if you actually audited and looked at it, it's like when you invest in guns, you don't get anything back. You just don't. You invest in water, you have a healthier community. You have people that aren't thirsty, you know? Like you get something out of that. Whereas just dumping money into guns and tanks and shields, it's so much money that literally you may as well burn it. It like I thought y'all capitalists, like shouldn't every dollar create more dollars? But all of a sudden, well, it costs what it costs when it comes to fucking guns that kill marginalized people and poor people. But
Or
anything
there's some
else you have to justify. Justify it.
yes,
Everything has
that's
to
what I was
be
gonna say.
tested. But it's like, well, you like, okay, so like, say somebody's like, just in my utopian world, we're gonna take all that money we spend on police. We're not gonna spend any money. It's gone, free for all, whatever. We're gonna take all that money and we're gonna house the homeless and house everybody, not just the homeless. We're gonna make sure everybody's taken care of with that money, which that's enough money to do so, by the way. The amount of money we spend on domestic policing, we could just have
Oh, yeah,
all of
absolutely.
us, rich, poor, in
Abs-
between, would never
no
have to worry
homeless.
about a roof over our head. Never. That's how much money we're spending on this. That never trickles back into the economy, the precious economy. It just burned. I guess the cops go buy boats and shit, but whatever. They're not actually contributing to human society. So follow me on this, right? Where was I? I lost myself. But we spend
You'll
all
get
this
there.
money. But if you bring up spending all this money on, say, solving the homelessness or hunger issue, which is like literally there's more than enough money here. There'll be money left.
Yes.
Um,
It's impossible to solve.
they say, oh, but it might fail.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll throw endless money at something that's always failing.
Well, they also create like it fail. Like the shelter systems are horrible by all accounts of every person that doesn't lacks a home you have like talked to. Usually it's like they develop systems that are just like filtering people into it's all filtering into the prison industrial complex. So that's why it's not just the cops that we have to and you've already said it, we're anti-capitalist, like it's the wealthy and those in power who make like laws that allow for like say BlackRock to own 100,000 homes across the Northeast too, things like that.
But
So
then
it's a system that's like there's systems upon systems.
neoliberals and neoconservatives have effectively killed any of our social services, so we all think they don't work properly.
Right, but they would. It's
They
just
would if
they're
they
not
were
allowed to.
just systematically for the last 50 years. And this is what everybody was saying when I was a kid is going to happen. And it's happening. Like the woke people I knew growing up that were like the cranks at my family parties were like, yo, this is going to be fucked in like the 2030s. Because then people are going to go straight to everything private because the public sector wasn't working. And then, like, I don't know. Anyways,
But it's like set that way. So I want everyone to just consider that's why in the new year, like we always do, we can focus on pressing our local here in Western Mass, and our friends out east can do the same. Pressing the budget as much as you can to focus on the things that do help the community, like education, public health, housing, etc. And someday, hopefully, we'll even have universal health care here in the United States. Don't let them tell you it can't be done. It can. It's done in most countries throughout the world, some funded by us.
And I want
So
to make sure that everybody knows how we feel in our heart of hearts. This worker that died, um, this National Grid worker,
yeah, Keto Roderick Jackson.
Keto Roderick Jackson, my age, 36 years old. Um, the reason we didn't do an episode on that person is because we want his family to fucking grieve. So maybe we'll reach out to his family for a comment in a few weeks, when they have a little time. We want to give them space to breathe. This isn't about reactionary, but we felt like this was really like, dude, every digital sign in Massachusetts was honoring this fucking goober, like, who chose to be a class traitor. And I'm sorry, that's why I don't have much sympathy when cops die doing cop shit, because honestly, if a lot of things were different, that life would still be here. But he chose to oppress and occupy his own community and his own fucking class comrades because he has no class consciousness. And, no sympathy. I feel bad for your family, I guess, but, I don't know. I feel heartbroken for the National Grid keto worker keto, because that's me. you know, like,
It could be any of us. It's really sad.
the road for my job, like, that's me.
Right.
Or it could be me hitting somebody. It could also be me, because our system is so stupid, and we have pods driving around everywhere and chaotic human beings being chaotic human beings with capitalist pressures on their minds, getting from point A to point B, having to communicate with so and so here, and it needs to be done now. I also need to pick up the fucking dry cleaning, just like the rush that everybody's in. It's like, no wonder crazy shit happens on the roads, and these vehicles that drive speeds, and they're missiles, man.
They are.
Let's
But
realize the
this
power.
a reminder for everyone to drive safely.
Yeah, and my job, thankfully, I think it's taught me a lot of patience with driving and recognizing what you're doing, like, and what the reality is. And like, road rage kind of really broke it for me, like seeing people get road rage, where I was like, I used to get mad at them, like, why are you doing this? You're actually being more dangerous. But the reality is, driving is a fight or flight thing. Like, you don't
It
recognize
is.
it because you've conceptually wrapped your head around it. We've multi generations lived with this technology, so we're in theory used to it. But our brain is like,
Mine's not.
this organic mass that I am specifically tasked with keeping safe is in an unsafe situation, and we do this for hours a day. So when somebody cuts you off, that's literally putting your life at risk. So of course your brain's going to go into fight or flight, and some people fight, and that's road rage. And then I was like, oh well, oh yes, because cars are, our brain in its core knows this is a fucking dangerous idea.
Right. It is. And I feel guilty of minute road rage. I feel like from the perspective of the other person, I probably look kind of adorable but angry. And it's usually like I'm not like trying to harm anyone.
Try to,
But like I have honked for a really long time, or I do flip people off.
I
But I
can
would actually this is my PSA though, like please don't engage in road rage if you can, because I understand why you're upset and why you're nervous, but you just never know what the other person may do in retaliation. And then you're more at risk of being unsafe.
it's made me be more accountable. So, like, when something happens, and you kind of like, you do something that, it happened.
Yes, I have I get really thrown off if someone cuts me off.
We
I
put
do.
the on late, like, you got to the turn, like a human error, right?
Right.
And the person behind you, like, is clearly agitated. I'm a big fan of the mea culpa. Like, if they happen to pull up to you at the red light, look
Oh,
at them and give them the fucking my bad, hands across the chest, like, I'm sorry, my bad, hands up, like, and like try to like recognize, like, yeah, that must have been annoying. Like, I feel like that's really something I've developed since I'm on the road so much now. Even in my personal vehicle, it's like, it's kind of all the same shit, where it's like, I just assume people are having a rough day, and also, like, this
sure.
is
For sure.
an incredibly triggering experience.
For sure.
So, and incredibly dangerous. OSHA, is this okay? Probably not. Again, if we didn't spend all this money on this bullshit, and we wouldn't need cops sitting on the side of the road, and this goober would still be with us. But no.
Well, and I have to say I have and I feel like I've said it on the show. The cops did not prevent me from being hit by a huge SUV head on. They have never prevented any accident I've ever been in. And how could they?
because it's a fool's errand. So,
Yeah, and just it's just accidents happen and it's a huge freaking rocket that you're driving like through
let's
space going way too fast usually. So just,
let's
yeah.
collectively as human beings get together and solve let's the root cause. Humans should not be driving cars. I'm sorry.
It's like it scares me still. We all
This
know.
is crazy.
I do okay, but that's why I understand how people can get upset because I myself can.
Like riding horses is crazy too. You're riding a
It
sentient
is right. It is crazy. Have you rid
crazy.
horses?
I not not like I've been on a horse, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it is
I don't
crazy
know.
though. It's crazy.
I've never been a big rider, but like some people, like, well, when back in those days, the roads didn't have to be as wide because blah blah blah. Horses can only do so much, and they only go so fast, and all this shit, right? And it's just
They
like
still could throw you, like kick you
they're
in the head if
sentient
you're behind
beings,
them.
whereas a motor is a motor, But at the same time, like driving in a fucking steel cage at that speed is crazy. It's a crazy concept, and we've
But
normalized.
both make me scary. Like scared. Humans are just so like I think our innovation sometimes will overlook the most wild things just because I think back to the times riding when I was a kid. We rode like not a ton, but like we'd go Western style riding through like the mountains and the Catskills. And I was always afraid, and the horses would know, and like they would take off or do crazy shit. Like stuff can happen. So
So,
cars, horses, flying, that's all kind of scary. I get why people get kind of like squirmy with any of those scenarios.
and if somebody tries to argue with you, one argument back or tactic to disarm the argument I've had when they say, "Oh, cops, if they didn't write tickets, the threat of the ticket," and I'm like, the tickets don't deter people, still speed. Like
But
that's,
yeah, it's a thing.
and they're like, "Well, the tickets just what? Imagine all the ones that wouldn't if there was no penalty," and it's like, yeah, there's supposed to be a consequence, but I don't see how chasing them down.
The only thing that seems to deter when I'm driving is like, well, you know how everyone slows down when they see a cop car?
Right.
Like the fear of getting a ticket, but I don't want to instill fear in everyone
That
constantly
doesn't
either.
make people better drivers, is all I'm saying.
No, it definitely doesn't. It
It's,
definitely doesn't.
it's just like when you grow up in a repressive household. It teaches you how to lie, teaches you how to hide.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They just slow down when the cops present.
Doesn't solve the root issue. I'm not saying
No,
speeding is good. So that's the
I know. I know that. I
no,
know
no, no,
that.
I'm saying that's the thought process. Somebody that's even like somebody that doesn't like police brutality and doesn't, they just like, well, what? How else do you do it? And I understand. I don't have a great solution. I think you gotta maybe we have to divest from cars and find another way.
Well, yeah, like ultimately we would have already like we wouldn't have given a so like I love the bike trails all over the state. I think they're fantastic. But my partner and I were talking once and he brought up like those were railroads at one time that connected us like at a local level to towns and like places surrounding us. And it's just like so the bike paths, I don't so for me it's kind of like instead of keeping those Gilded Age like railroads up in place so that the wealthy could travel from, Northampton to Hartford for the day, it was much more localized. Like we could have gone regionally all over. Think of where our bike trails are. So like that part makes me like, I'm like, why did we decide to do bike trails and not keep regional rail? Because
You
as
know,
someone who's been able to use public transportation in major cities, it is awesome.
rubber lobby.
But I'm just saying, you know what I mean? It sucks. I know the
Probably, but
cars and
literally
there's
because bikes use rubber. So
well, and I guess, it's probably expensive to keep I'm
asphalt.
sure it is expensive to keep regional railroads going, and our money goes a lot to other things.
Well, like
So
we were saying in previous episodes, like when you own your internet infrastructure, it ultimately is cheaper, and you're more likely to
long term,
invest in it
yeah.
because you own it. Like if a town owns their power source, hopefully if they're being managed correctly, they're investing because it's not a lease. It's not like, oh, we can just fire this and get another company to come in to provide that service. Like if you're doing it yourself, you can invest in the infrastructure and set yourself up for the long run. So, as communities, we need to invest in that. But this is the problem with profit motive, man. Like the railroads wanted to make money and they couldn't. How dare it be effective and break even or even lose money?
Right. They are trying to extend right now Amtrak service east to west or along Route 2. And so honestly, I do really hope that happens because you could technically maybe go from like Boston to North Adams by rail. And like where I live, I could drive to Wachusett and like take the rail into Boston. So I think any extensions of the railroads that exist in our communities, we should push for. Um, that is a way for us to, and buses in our towns and cities are often really underfunded. And sometimes people can't, like, I've talked to many people in the community of like Hadley, Emerson, Northampton when I lived there. And they couldn't, we would use the bus system there more frequently because it did run more during school hours. So it was like focused on the UMass and like five college like schedule. But for working people, sometimes it's during those non-school times, it doesn't serve them well in terms of getting them to and from work. So they would spend like for them like a lot of money getting one way or the other just to get to work. So I think investing in all of those things, yeah, even if it's just a little bit at a time, is a good thing. Reallocating those funds.
Just so if anybody at home is wondering why we always we're neurodivergent people. So if trains are,
Trains, planes, and automobiles.
I wouldn't say it's a hyperfixation for us, but we both think about trains a lot, and that's
We,
um
we do.
like, we've brought up trains a bunch of times.
All right, fine, but like they're important.
It's just proof that we're neurodivergent. We love trains.
Whatever. I
They're
don't need
great.
any. We
Great.
are. Yeah.
And I believe in decentralized hyperlocal economies. So personally, I feel like that's the only way to do it equitably. Trying to fucking scale shit out always fails. In
But
my
then it's hard to build a connected railway. So that's why that's hard. This is open to conversations about how we do things in the future.
there's a whole ecosystem thing we have to be concerned about, and marginalized communities, making sure they're served and or not destroyed. Like when they built the highway system, it's an incredibly racist
Oh
system.
God.
Like it's our racism is literally in our infrastructure. Like it's crazy.
It's true.
So, anyways, not that down note everybody, but this whole episode was basically a Ghoulery and tomfoolery. So
It was.
take that as your holiday gift. Remember the fascists never take a day off. They even used their dead buddy's fucking body to grift and to garner sympathy and whitewash their crimes against humanity. And I mean that with my whole chest. I believe I have utter disdain for class traitors, um, and especially the ones that claim ignorance. Because if you're an open minded person, you would listen to people saying, hey, man, you shouldn't become a cop. Like, every cop has been somebody had a conversation with that guy before he became a cop, because the effects of bad policing and bad judicial system has touched everybody in this country, and you're always going to know at least one person that was directly harmed. I guarantee you, every cop, there's before they become a cop, there's one person, even if 99% of the people around them are like all about them being a cop, there's gonna be one person like, don't do it. So listen to that person. I guess anybody that's considering being a future cop, don't do it. That's my advice for everybody. If it feels like being a cop, don't do it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, even if it feels like it.
Anyways, my hyper focus is police. I don't like guys with guns acting like they're tough guys when they're doing occupying forces with unarmed civilians. We are the unarmed civilians. They're occupying us. They're especially occupying the indigenous and black populations and the non-in group. I don't know, like trans women. Like being a white woman gets you a lot, but you can still be a target for the police. Unfortunately, they yeah, not good stuff. See the Sandra Birchmore episode if you're curious. An example of cops being awful to well, white women. Like they do really fucked up shit to every community with less power than white men. So that's my mission here, and that's the end of 2024 for us. That this
Wait,
whole
2023.
getting ahead of myself. Sorry.
Yeah, don't age me.
here's hoping that 2024 isn't worse than 2023. Let's say that. Like, I don't think it can get much worse, but everybody, thank you for tuning in. And sorry, it's like we've been giggling this episode, so I don't know. I feel a little weird ending it on the
Well, I have something to say. I
disaster.
think I would like everyone to remember the war on Christmas. If you're speaking to someone who thinks that's happening, remember it is. Let them know that and tell them to please, contact me directly and I'll fight with them about how much there is a war on Christmas. And just try to keep yourself laughing and get through the season as well as you can. I know it's a hard one, but like Spence said, I think there is so much good that can come in 2024 because it has been such a hard year. And that gives us something to look forward to. Don't you
Absolutely.
think?
And to
Yeah.
jump on the Warren Christmas thought, I will gladly. I'm in neither camp. I don't give a fuck.
I just think it's funny to upset like religious
So
people.
I reach out to the people that think there's a war on Christmas versus the people that actually
Oh god.
Christmas, like Joanna apparently. Um,
It's a single war probably just to
no,
anger the
a lot
Christian
of
right.
think there are a lot of people that are actively trying to have a war on Christmas back because when you wish something, it does come true. Which the
Yeah, evangelicals, stop whining so hard because now I'm appeared.
actionary Christians, if you keep saying something's happening, it's eventually going to happen. Like,
Like I only write it as Xmas. I've never used Christ as Christmas since like 2018 because it will incite people.
oh, really?
And it's so funny. Oh my gosh. It's the funniest thing, everyone. So Xmas.
So
Happy Xmas.
I happen to like eating and spending time with my family. So I would like this war on Christmas to end and we come to a peace accord. But
Well,
just
I like to
know,
eat and spend time.
no, I know you do. I think
Oh,
I haven't declared a side on the war on Christmas. I'm kind of like, why do
fair, fair.
you care Christians? I guess is really the side I'm on. Like, I find you, I find your side humorous and cheeky. Like that's fun.
Thank you. That's what it's supposed to be. Not
That's
at
what
all
the holidays
upsetting.
is supposed to
It's
be.
not
It's
supposed to be upsetting. It's just funny.
supposed to be fun. Uh, so that's maybe my bias there. But if y'all just keep in mind,
It's
I am gonna have to ask Christians to stop spending so much money on stupid shit that doesn't Christmas. I'm all but I love the idea of gift giving. I hate that it's all like Christmas has been totally saturated with consumerism as opposed to
yes.
the idea of like, hey, I like nothing better than when somebody like I don't know bought me a pair of boots one year, like my a loved one, and I still wear them because they were a really good gift. Like they spent more money than I would have spent. They treated me to something and it meant something. And yes, they bought a commercial item, but like, yeah, just like all these knickknacks and stupid bullshit. I like, I know the decorations and stuff are supposed to be fun, but I get itchy about it. So it's like it's so wasteful. Like what all that like copper inside those wires, like what are we doing? Just I don't know. And then knowing how many people just throw that shit out while it still works, like just that shit
It's
gets
a
on.
lot. It's a
I'm proud
lot.
of the war on Christmas, maybe for different reasons, but I will gladly negotiate peace accords. I want there to be a joyous holiday where we can all shut the fuck up and eat, but also like I'm not going to tolerate genocide. So
I don't break bread with people that will.
yeah, exactly. So I guess that's another sticking point. But at the very least, we can end open hostilities. Y'all can just keep your Christ to yourself, and we'll
That's how I feel.
good Xmas Christmas.
And it's Hanukkah season, and there are so many other holidays that come this time of year. And I just want everyone, some people don't celebrate at all, and that's fine too. I just think it's I call it the cold season, and it's hard to get through because it's dark and cold and it's shitty. So I just hope everyone stays well. Thank you for being our audience, for being people that send us information on stuff we should cover, for being our anchors, for just being out there. We love you and we're so happy to bring you more content in 2024.
As always, you can find everything we mentioned on this episode that would have a link or whatever at www.theweedout.com in the show notes. Each episode has its own show notes with its own information. Feel free to reach out to us on all the socials. You can go to you can access that all from our website, or you can go to one of our social media accounts and click on the link tree in bio. Um, hope everybody's having a good winter and, you know, keep weeding out the bullshit.
Take care.